This is the Creative Download, hosted by Christy Bruno and Chelsea Nettleton, created by creatives to inspire and encourage others to live in the fullness of their creativity.
Last week, we talked about resistance, and by the end of the recording for episode 4, we realized we had a whole lot more to talk about than just one episode's worth. So we broke it into 2 episodes. Here with episode 5, we're picking up where we left off with the quote from The War of Art. Let's jump back in. He basically starts off the book here. Let's see, there's a secret that real writers, and we'll put in there artists. But he, he's a writer, so he puts it towards writers. There's a secret that real writers know that wannabe writers don't. And the secret is this: it's not the writing part that's hard. What's hard is sitting down to write. What keeps us from sitting down is resistance.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to just respond to that quote, because this was something that really helped me a lot, that I learned in Judy Stakey's songwriting development, to meet myself where I'm at, to sit down.
Yes.
Because we as so we're all in a different place, right? Even if somebody, let's just say, because we talk about songwriters. Let's just say somebody writes a hit song, and actually, I actually have this idea from these guys they're called Songtown, and it's Clay Mills and Marty Dodson are both songwriters, working songwriters, and one of them talks about this, and they have a podcast called Songtown that I listen to about songwriting, and I do it a lot to work on the resistance, because but they talk about how I can't remember which one it was, that said how they had written a song. I mean, I think it became a hit. It had just reached the top of the charts.
Nice.
And he goes to sit down into a writing room with someone, and the other writer is like, okay, so how are we going to beat that? Okay, so it's
oh God, that's not a good way to start a session,
right? And so you might have a success in writing or in art or whatever, but the creative part is not the success. The creative part is the actual act and the process of doing the work. And so I think that's the biggest difference in that's a big part. I think actually there's some talk about that in The War of Art, the process. Because if you meet yourself where you're at in the process, maybe you did have a hit song, but currently in that moment, you're not at that hit song place.
Right.
You know what I mean? So to know, where am I at today? Do you know what I mean? Where am I at? And, and meet yourself where you're at, go from there, and not focusing on the process more than you are focusing on the end result. And I think the end result becomes what it's going to become.
Right.
And you do the best that you can in the process. And I think the part that I need to that I've wanted to sit down is to work on my guitar.
Right. Same.
So right now, right now I have a songwriting team, right? I write with a team, and it's so much fun. I don't even want to do anything else. So I'm enjoying it. I'm the top liner. I write the melodies, and I get to sing. Favorite thing to do. We have George Slavic, who's amazing on guitar. He's really intuitive and great. He does the guitar, and Lori's an amazing lyricist. Lori Gilbert. She writes all these amazing lyrics. So it's I just get to do the fun stuff. That's kind of where I'm at. But there's
your sweet spot.
The force, the voice, is well, you really love playing guitar too.
Right.
But I'm not as good as George.
Right. The comparison game.
Oh. I'm not as good as George. And I shouldn't be. That's why we have our team.
Right.
But that doesn't mean
you can't do it.
And guys, I'm talking to myself at this moment. I'm
I was going to say, a lot of this is for ourselves. We realize
I've gone through some songwriting for guitar coaching a little bit with Mike Myers, to where he's been just sit down for 15 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. His big thing. Yeah. It's 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes.
People try and do a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour.
I have
my minutes.
Chorus, my critical chorus wants to get going. That I should be better, or I should be this, or I'm not as good as that person, or I'm not as good. No, just And so I have these new voices to combat that resistance that says, okay, meet yourself where you're at.
Yep.
So I'm going to call myself out right now. And
I love it.
I have a stomach ache even saying it. And it's so dumb.
Isn't that cool though? No, that's so authentic. I love you for sharing that because I totally get that. And I know other people will too.
So I have I'm a little impatient and it's been with guitar and instruments. And so
Same.
because
Bad.
vocally I can do everything vocally quicker and I can dance and I can do all that stuff. So when you've given me an instrument, it feels a little paralyzed. It's like, ugh.
Same.
So I just skip chords. If the chord is like, okay, the B chord sucks. George is probably going to laugh if he listens
awful.
to this.
Yeah.
I talk about, how can we avoid me having to play the B chord?
I totally get that.
So now I've been given a solution by two people. Learn the inversions.
Yep.
Okay, so that means I have to sit down and learn an inversion.
And your fingers are so used to one way.
No. And so
talk about resist.
And all my guitar musician people, don't make fun of me that I just called myself out on not learning how to play the B chord. I mean, I literally skipped it in a song.
I think they'll understand.
Yeah, I know. So, just stuff like that. Like I'll do that. And now I say that out loud because I've had this voice going on saying, you really need to sit down with your guitar, practice some inversions. If you don't know what an inversion is, I can't explain it to you yet.
Yeah,
I've been shown physically, and I know what to do, and I know how to get there, but I can't tell you.
I get it conceptually, but I couldn't explain it either.
Yeah,
Not right
now. And it's like the little things like that. Sit down and do it. 15 minutes, and as opposed to like I have to learn the whole song, or I have to so we go through all of these resistant things, and that's like an internal thing. And I think the other part is like fear.
Yeah, big time.
Fear is a big driver of resistance.
You want to?
Yes, let's hear.
Funny you should say that.
Fear.
Funny you should say that because I actually just read this part yesterday. So again, this book is not thick. I mean, it's a thin. It's not a big book, but it is thick with such good stuff. So I mean, I've been slowly kind of just eating chunks of it as I go. But I read this yesterday. Okay, so this is one of the things that resistance is. Resistance is fear. I'm sorry. This is kind of the overall of what resistance is. Resistance is fear. And he goes on and he says, but resistance is too cunning to show itself naked in this form.
Yes.
Why? Because if resistance lets us see clearly that our own fear is preventing us from doing our work, we may feel shame at this, and shame may drive us to act in the face of fear. And resistance doesn't want that. So rationalization is resistance spin doctor.
Oh, yeah.
So with resistance, it becomes, is rationalization. And we rationalize away, oh, well, I don't have 15 minutes. Oh, I don't have this. And that was my whole week this week. That's why I'm like authentic with y'all. I could have found time for my art, but I rationalized so many things. Oh, I'm so exhausted. I've been working so much. I've had edits to do for a thing that I volunteered for,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm Yeah, well, guess what? I'm rationalizing, so was spin doctoring away.
You come up with all of these ideas and reasons why I can't do it.
Yeah, but I love what he says that that resistance is fear, and so actually that's a good leap into, so the first section of the book is, it literally just says book one, or it says book one in here. It's all in the one book, but so we'll call it part one is resistance. And underneath that, it says defining the enemy. That alone, and that's 3 words.
And the enemy
was powerful.
Okay, I can say that the enemy can be external and internal.
Yep.
Because I think we are raised. Okay, this is what I wanted to say earlier, and that's a great lead in. I really believe that when we all come to this world as little kids, little babies, we are emotional, we are creative. It is like just who we are. And our culture, at least for the time I've been alive, has really been like not supportive of that, in the sense that our school expects us to be a certain way. Our, we haven't had good language until recently, like the last probably 5 or 10 years, maybe 5 years, on how to identify emotions,
Oh,
you
oh,
know,
yeah, emotional
like the
language. Yeah.
emotional language. A
Yeah.
lot of our young people in their 30s and under know how to identify their emotions,
That's
but
true.
I
Maybe
wasn't
too
taught
a little
that.
too much.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I mean, it feels that way because when you come
Right.
from not having that allowed,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you're expected to stuff it down. So at early on, our enemy, so you want to call it the enemy of that
Hmm.
creative emotional part of us, is the external. It's
Hmm.
the, oh, my third grade teacher or my fourth grade teacher was the art teacher.
Hmm.
We no longer have art. I have a really happy memory of being in art class my third grade year, and we had freedom. We
Yeah.
could chew gum. We could create what we wanted to create. It wasn't so rigid. Like a lot of
Yeah.
art, even now in school, is like very like
Oh, yeah.
to the test. You have to be able to like accomplish a certain thing. It doesn't allow creativity.
That was my experience with art
Yeah.
in elementary school. It was not fun. It was
No,
rigid.
and my
I
son
didn't like
had
it.
the same experience in junior high. It was just so annoying. And
Yeah.
so that is kind of squashed out of us. And to me,
Hmm.
that is, or squashed down. I don't think it ever goes
Squash
away,
down.
squashed
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So then there's the enemy on the outside, right? Like, so that's the
Hmm.
enemy that creates the resistance because and that's where we want to hide that because it's not
Hmm.
safe, you know,
Right.
and the fear of it being squashed again is so freaking painful
Oh,
that you
yeah.
just don't want to let it out. You're not going to let
Yep.
anybody see it.
Yep.
And then there's the enemy. I want to talk about the external enemy. The other external enemy is that you have to then, if you want to have that creativity and emotion, then it must be used to good use.
Exactly.
It
Right.
must be wonderful and good, and it
Yep.
doesn't allow that little creative artist to grow and to actually develop. So there's no
Yeah.
development. And then
Yeah.
you have the internal enemies
Yep.
who are
Oh, yeah.
created as a result. And that inner critic, that inner chorus, like, oh, how dare you show anybody that you like that? Or, oh, I
Hmm.
don't know if I should show that. Like we were talking about, creating the safe space of who to show your art
Yeah.
to, right?
Yes.
Who to share this with. Because if you share it with people who are like, are, Julia Cameron talks about them, like they're buried artists. What does she call them? She has a word for
Oh,
them, but
shoot. Yeah. I can't remember.
where you just are not you're a frozen artist. I guess I could call
Yeah.
it a frozen artist.
A
And
resistant artist.
the resistant artist. I mean, okay, this is a horrible example because I know that like nobody wants to like be compared to Hitler, but there is a lot of research that has gone on about him wanting to be an artist.
It's
Oh,
in
maybe I
here.
read it in there.
It's in
I did. I was like, where did I
here.
just read that? Because that's in the very beginning.
Yep.
There's a lot of research around him.
Let's see if I can
And
find it real
when
quick.
that is really squashed out of someone and they have nowhere to go, no one to talk to about it, it really creates madness. It really
Yeah.
does. It creates so much anger and so much hatred. And and it's horrific that
Right. To
that's
think
like
about
where it
that, to
can
use that as,
go.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
I'm glad it's in that book,
It
which
is, and it was amazing. And I really like, I'm going to take the time to find it, because
I think it's in the
I'm so
beginning.
glad you said that. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
towards the beginning. I almost even remember the page because I was like, holy crap, I can't believe that
Maybe
was,
that
the case for him.
maybe our politics needs creativity training.
Right? Seriously.
Maybe our podcast will make its way to
Make its
some of the
way to the
people who
higher
are
ups.
so angry in our politics right now and
Right?
vengeful that oh maybe they
Yeah.
need like art class or maybe they need some creativity.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was. I remember putting a sticky note on it. I can almost remember even what the page looked like. And I hesitated to actually reference it because, yeah, it was like, ooh, I don't want to make light of this.
Right.
But he talks about, Hitler in there. Let me see. Resistance to
There's a
killing.
combination of things that has happened to him that happened to him in his
Yes.
childhood. That's one of them.
Right.
So the others,
Yeah,
because
certainly not
I've
the only, but
Alice Miller, I think it's Alice Miller wrote For Your Own Good, which is a book that is not light reading. I will just tell you right now. I was reading it
okay.
one time at the beach, and my husband says, "What are you reading about?" And I said, "Well, right now I'm reading about Hitler's mother." He's like,
What?
I'm like not. I don't even want to know what you're reading, but I did read it, and it does talk about like his upbringing and not having
Mhm.
anyone to talk to, and
Ugh,
how there was a
awful.
lot of horrific abuse, and in that culture, and even in our culture for children, that children suffer. You know, the ideals around parenting oftentimes were very what we would consider abusive now, and was
Hmm.
legal to do. You know,
Oh my
for
God, yeah.
children. So when you combine all those things, it creates, most people in psychology and psychiatry, I've heard say, and I taught a lot of this historic part in my education. That's why I know a lot about it. Was, probably a personality disorder development as a
Yeah.
result.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's not
amazing.
just you don't become Hitler by
Right,
not
right.
engaging in your creativity.
Right. Excuse me. I did find it because I have a little sticky note that says, when this was the library book, it says last line. Wowza.
Yeah, read
Um,
that for us because
so
it's so powerful.
just this last part, let's see, and the section on this one says the unlived life,
Unlived
which
life.
meaning not pursuing the things that you're called to do. So again, like you said, this is just part of it. But so this is kind of the last paragraph. He said, Hitler wanted to be an artist. At 18, he took his inheritance, 700 kronen. I don't know how much that is in,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it was a lot. Moved to Vienna to live and study. He applied
Mhm.
to the Academy of Fine Arts and later to the School of Architecture. Ever see one of his paintings? Neither have I.
Mm.
Resistance beat him. Call it overstatement, but I'll say it anyway. And this is Stephen Pressfield. Call it overstatement, but I'll say it anyway. It was easier for Hitler to start World War II than
Yeah.
it was for him to face a
Oh,
blank square of canvas.
well, to face himself too, because okay,
Yes.
let's go
But
to
I mean,
this.
like, but to
Yeah.
face easier to start World War
With
II than to face a blank square of canvas. Like,
yeah.
how much, like, again, not without making light of that horrific historical event, how many of us can relate to that? That it's
Yeah.
like I catch myself vacuuming when I really don't need to because I did maybe really recently because I just can't sit down to work on my art,
Well, and I think to take that to like the feelings part of it again, like
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking a lot about resistance and the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
When you bury
Oh.
feelings all your life,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna come up.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get into your creativity, and you start
Pugga.
writing.
Sorry.
Can you hear Pugga? I
I
know.
love her.
Pugga,
So if you
she's
hear that,
deep in sleep. That's
that's
Pugga,
sweet Pugga. That's Christy's dog,
our little pug.
her little pug. She's adorable. So if you hear that, that's what that is.
Yeah,
And we don't mind it at all.
yeah, she's dreaming, I think. But
She's she's dreaming. I love it.
but that some of this grief and sorrow or
Mhm.
anger or whatever that comes up can actually be useful in your creativity because
Right.
you can get it out that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it can also be terrifying.
Oh,
You know,
100%.
so like the fear of that,
Mm-hmm.
facing that, or the fear of people. I think that creating this, gosh, we got to do collaboration next because
Yeah.
one of the things I hear on both Sync Titans and with Judy and Mike and their hit makers is really to create that safe space that so you can have that vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can have this vulnerability to
Mm-hmm.
be able to allow some of these. We're writing right now a very vulnerable song for me. That's why I'm
Yeah.
also feeling some of the sorrow. And as I say it,
That
I'm like
makes sense.
goosebumps everywhere.
Yep.
And Lori and I have a very similar upbringing.
Mm.
And she came up with these lyrics that have just are just wow. Like, and
Mm.
it really, I'm like, want to write, I want to sing this so bad because there's a part of me that lived this.
Yeah.
But until you build that relationship with people
Mm-hmm.
to have that kind of vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
that is also not taught in our education. I
Nope.
wish we could have that because
Right.
if you knew how to do that and not do it too fast,
Exactly.
because if
Yep.
you do it too fast and then you like let somebody see this side of you that so has been buried for so long and is so
Mm-hmm.
terrified and they reject it because
Mm-hmm.
they're not ready or whatever, they don't get it,
Yep.
that can send you into a tailspin for a
That
long
can
time.
cause some serious trauma.
Right. So it's like I mean, we were talking about Hitler, and he caused the trauma that he had, he brought upon the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's like the extreme
Yeah.
of it.
Extreme
But it's,
example of it,
but
but it's there.
it's there, that, and why are we not learning from that? Like, it's not,
Right?
why are we not learning from that? We are, you and I are.
You and I are. Yeah, but why as a society? Which on that note, to our listeners, maybe y'all can keep us accountable, because maybe it may not be a class in high schools or even college or anything, but I think we need, eventually, maybe after we get going with our podcast a good while, we have a course on creating that safe place, collaborating, like specifically,
yes, stuff
being able to create. Like I have this vision and this dream of wanting to do a course like that. Like there's a lot of courses out there on how to do your art. There's a lot of, and we learned a lot of that, like the collaborating and that kind of thing, in some of Judy Stakey stuff and Mike Myers stuff, and I've learned some from Heather Evans and Jody and Mike, like these people that we know or that we've met or worked with. But I think it'd be really cool to like focus on a course that people can take, that it's like teaching almost like how to release your creativity, like the whole, like the pre creating part of it.
Yeah.
Digging deep. I mean, I'm not saying that's like a breakthrough, oh my God, nobody's ever done that, but I know there's books about it, but maybe I don't know, let us know if that would be something that would be interesting to you guys. I don't know, just kind of a thought. But that'd be kind of neat to share that from ours.
The educator in me likes all of that, it's like, but then there's the part
there's a reason that you were a teacher. There was a part of that. This is what I love. It's like looking at backgrounds. It's like, I know that wasn't your dream because you're an artist, but it's so cool to see that like you have so many things that are coming to help from that.
I would teach again if creativity was allowed. I will tell you, I have so many stories. And if I said this story already, then
don't worry about it.
When I was teaching fourth grade, when I wrote Little Girl, the song that's on the last one, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of in that, like, teaching, recording at night, doing all this stuff. And I had all these little kids, fourth graders, some of them with like the English is their second language too. And we were in this mode in education. We're still in it, and it's ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, it's going to sound like the words are not going to come out right, but it was the No Child Left Behind time period.
Right,
meaning like every child needs to read at reading level. Okay, well, so that's a great concept. But when you have a bunch of kids that their first language is Spanish or Chinese or Vietnamese. I mean, I live in San Diego, so we have Korean, we have kids from all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean all over the world. Like I student taught in a place where like I call it like the world. Like I had kids all over the world, Africa, Europe, just South America,
a plethora, the true melting pot.
The true melting pot. Yeah, it was awesome. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But so getting them to read and write in this really boring structural way that we had moved to, which is awful. I'm just gonna say it, I don't teach anymore. And I remember sitting in my son's second grade class in the writing lesson and was like, shoot me. No wonder no one wants to write. So I teamed up that year with an art program that had a grant to do art in class. And I decided to combine it between art and writing because I couldn't get these kids to write because none of them were like, it was so boring. So we did a photojournalism project. And we went to, and it was funded by this art program. I can't remember what it is now because I don't think it's around. And I did a field trip to Balboa Park, which is historically a beautiful park here in San Diego. It's built in the late 1800s. And they had these little portable cameras before we had cell phones. It was before that. And they went around and they could take pictures, and then they brought their pictures back and they created their journal that they were going to tell their story. I mean, it was, and then a photojournalist from the San Diego Union Tribune came to the school class, kind of prepped us to go what photojournalism. So they went with the idea that they were photojournalists for the newspaper.
Oh my God, what a great idea.
Every kid was writing.
That's amazing.
100% of my kids were writing. Oh. And I gave them the freedom to write in the language they felt most comfortable.
Sure.
Which we know as educators, that if you learn to write in your first language, then writing in the second language is going to be easier. So, but our culture doesn't want you to do that in school. They want you writing in English.
Right.
So, and I got in a little bit of trouble because I wasn't focusing. They kept pulling me out. My school kept pulling me out to go and teach me how to teach them to write. And I was like, you guys, look. And
It's working.
it's
Leave me
working.
alone.
Like, we're writing, but it wasn't writing to the test. And so
Man.
we've been caught in this for about 30
Hmm.
years. And
Yeah, at
so
least.
I left teaching because why,
Hmm.
I mean, and I got laid off too. They were laying us off and they don't pay. So, I mean, there's
Yeah.
like, there's
Yeah.
a bunch of
Numerous things,
in San
but
Diego.
that was on the top of the list.
But that was so much fun. And so then I would substitute for a lot of the music teachers, and I would not teach music. I would teach songwriting. So
Yeah.
because I don't have songwriting in the lower education of, middle school and high school.
I don't know
But
anywhere that has songwriting as a
yeah, you could go at Berkeley, Music School of Berkeley,
right,
or
right,
online, but like in
but not
schools,
high school. Yeah.
they don't have
Mm-mm.
that. So, yes, but that was like kind of the creativity of communication is really an art is gone, and
Yeah.
teachers are expected to do all of it now, so you don't have an art
Hmm.
teacher, you don't have all of that funded.
Yeah.
So that's my rant.
So I wanted to, the first part of the book of the War of Art, it was really cool. I wrote down, so it's in bite-sized chunks,
Mhm.
it's not this
Yeah, that's what I
big.
like about this. You can read like a section. I would like
Yeah,
include it
that's
in
why I say
my
it's thick.
morning, like in the morning, like you brought up morning
Yes.
pages. What I do is
Yes.
if I have a book, like right now I'm doing Big Magic, that one's on my list to get it. What, thriftbooks.com?
Thriftbooks.com.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
in
gonna
case we
get
didn't
it
mention
there.
the website for it. Yeah.
And what I do is I sit down and I read one page,
Yeah.
and then I kind of process it, and I might
Yep.
write a little bit about it, in my
Yeah.
morning pages. So that's just how I would handle a
I
book
love
like that.
that. Yeah. And I think that's kind of one thing I'm going to start doing on the mornings that I do have a little bit more leeway and a little bit more time. Like, I like to, and actually, you know what? Okay, we're going to just take a little second and talk about, so going back to our morning pages, because I know this is something that Christy and I will always encourage, no matter what kind of artist you are, if you're a physical artist.
Yes.
And
Morning
I hope that's a
pages.
good word for that. Guys, if there's a guys and gals, if there's a better word out, that for our painters, our drawers, if there's a better word than physical artist, let us know. We're going to
Visual
call it that for now.
artists, but I
Visual
guess you
artist.
could be
Well,
sculptors, you can be a performance artist. I have
well,
friends
that's what
that
I
are
was thinking.
performance
Like,
artists.
that's what I'm thinking.
So,
Like that. So the drawing, painting, that kind of thing, of literally physically, creating some sculptors. And then we've got our dancers, body art. And then we've got, so things like that.
but
Whatever
if
your art is, what do you call it? What is the overarching
and
of
what
that?
if
Let
you
us
don't
know.
know? Because if
And if
if
you, yeah, if
Brene
you
Brown
don't
is
know,
correct that we all, which I believe she is, and I believe that we all come here as creative beings, we may not know what we are yet. What if you don't
very
know?
true.
If
Yeah.
you
What
don't
is
know
it that
what
you
you
like to
are,
do? You know, and maybe that's the first part of our course is discovering what is it that
I would,
you.
yeah. What did you
So
really find interesting as a child? Like, I
yeah,
think
what?
you go back to
Yes,
like when you're
the
really
freedom.
young. What
Hmm.
was the freedom that you found? I'm going to tell you right now, for me, it was dance.
Oh
I
yeah,
talk
no
about
question.
dance,
Yeah, I
but
know you talk about dance. Yeah,
dance and singing, like
yeah.
singing and dancing, that was like my thing.
I know I mentioned this for me. So going back again to when I was a kid, I know I mentioned this before because my brother told me about it. He listened to our first episode, and he's like, I think I can still find that picture, but I still have a picture. So mine, when I was a kid, mine was, you know, not as much dancing like to dance because I was a gymnast, but dancing, performing, singing. So I have this
Yeah.
song, I have this picture that, again, my brother my brother jokingly says he's gonna blackmail me with it someday. That I've got the total 80s. Well, I guess this would have been like late 80s, very early 90s, polka dotted, dress that just, and I've got a fake microphone in my hand, and I am just, you
Yeah.
can tell in the picture that I am just wailing it out like I'm, I think at the time, I was thinking of like Whitney Houston. The song was a Wilson Phillips song. I will never forget
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So shout out to
No
Wilson Phillips. Y'all inspired me.
inhibitions. Because when
No
you're,
inhibitions.
yeah, you
Yes.
don't have any
Um,
inhibitions at that point in
which
time,
Christy, maybe that's
usually.
our next song that you and I co-write. No
Ooh, yeah.
inhibitions.
No inhibitions.
But yeah, but when I was a kid, so there was that. But then the other thing that sticks in my head so much is storytelling, because
Yes.
whether it was at the pool, which I was a fish, I loved the water, which water is very healing for me. I think that's a very important thing to know for yourself. What is something that's healing for you, where you can go? Water was very healing. I was at the pool every day, even on stormy days, and the lifeguards didn't like that because they usually wanted to go home, and I was the only one
Yes.
that would stay there if it wasn't lightning.
Yeah.
And I would
We called
my
you a
best friend
pool
and I.
rat when I was
Yep.
a
I was a
lifeguard.
total,
You were a
oh, I
pool
know. And
rat.
then I became a lifeguard and I'm like, man, you damn pool rats. It's so true. But my best friend and I would, when we were at the pool, when we were in the water, we would create stories. We were mermaids usually, because I mean, it makes sense, you know, but we would create these stories of who we were and
Yeah,
our
there you
backstories. I
go.
mean, not knowing what we were doing, just enjoying, being these characters, creating these characters. And then if we weren't at the pool, we were usually at her house. She had a way cooler backyard than I did. So we would create these stories. We played Lost in the Wilderness, which was a game we made up. It wasn't even a
Yeah.
game, it was a story.
See,
So I'm
that's
like,
such a great
storytelling.
exercise. Going
Mm-hmm.
back to, like, if you're listening, go back to, can you think of a time
Mm-hmm.
where you felt free?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking about so
Mm-hmm.
beautifully. Like you
No
kind of you
inhibitions.
went through this like memory that your brain will have.
Mm-hmm.
What were those things that you loved to do?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be training. See, that's the thing. We get kind of, I think that's where, like, when we go to school, we get kind of like everything gets compartmentalized.
Right.
This is how we're going to do this now.
Right.
It's like, I would even go before that. I would go back before that, before you were,
Oh, before it became something that was like kind of
structured. Yeah.
structured. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think back, I think they say think back to when you were like 7, 6, 5 maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of your earliest memories of what did you do when you were a kid? What did you do with your time?
Yeah.
When you had time to yourself, what did you go do?
Yeah.
Did you sit and draw endlessly? That kind of thing. So for listeners, ponder that. What was that? We might be surprised, because even as I was thinking about that, mine just now, I was like, oh yeah, 100%. I was a singer.
Yeah.
I would sing along to songs. I have videos of me singing. I have me dressed up in
Me
goofy
too.
outfits.
Yeah.
I remember, oh my gosh. So this is just a funny little thing, and I won't say her name, just in case I don't want to embarrass her. But this was a friend that I had in high school, and I don't know if she remembers this anyways. I'll just call her B. Just in case she ever listens to this, and she'll recognize it if she remembers. Even I'm sorry, not in high school. I think it was middle school. Because we were young enough to still kind of have no inhibitions, we would go down in my basement. We'd set up my camcorder. We would dress up in the goofiest outfits. Like I think we wore my brother's clothes because they were
Yeah.
big and baggy, and we would lip sync and dance around like we were in like a music video. And I want to say it was like
Mm.
um Smashing Pumpkins, and I mean we just like
Yeah.
headbanging song. Nothing I would ever perform. We had so much fun. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just knowing we were allowed to be free. Nobody was around. It was just me and her, and it was so much fun. So think of things like that,
Yeah. And
where it's
maybe
like when you're not afraid of people watching you, what did you do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And write us. Like if you figure that out, let us know. I'd love to know. Again, social media, email, just write us. Like maybe I'll try and remember to put that as a question on our social
Yeah.
media that you can
I think
answer on
that's a good
Facebook.
idea.
Or we'll put up a picture in Instagram that you can respond to. Because I would be so curious. I would love to know what you guys see from that for yourselves when you were
I
little.
think that's a really good beginning, of like
Mm-hmm.
tapping into that. And
Yeah.
like I do think talking about the link to resistance, and I hear this sometimes in the songwriting development, like, oh, are you working with anybody? Are you collaborating with anyone?
Right.
Because we can kind of box ourselves in, lock ourselves in, and
Right.
get into fear. I know I can.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Me too.
And
No
it's
question.
not until I'm around other people who are actively pursuing their creativity that I feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable. Like I've talked about our friends in Canada.
Right.
It's like I was kind of blocked off. I was reading Big Magic at the time. I wasn't actively in my art. But when I went there, we went to Seattle and to Victoria. I went on this. So I kind of have these offshoots, and I went on a photography kind of adventure. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
do things, right? If I can't do my like songwriting or whatever, I will find other things. And so I did all these beautiful photographs of the art of Seattle and the artwork
cool.
of
Yeah.
Victoria, and like just like the architecture, and like just Space Needle, and like all the stuff
Yeah.
that we did. And I have all these amazing photos that I took that like filled that part of me. But when I was with our friends, he's a performance artist, she's a sculptor, his friends were like filmmakers. They all were living their creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't just something they did. It was, they were
living it.
It was, they were living in it. They were doing
fully.
it.
They do everything in their art. It felt so safe for me.
That's awesome.
And I, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about her dad in Big Magic. And I think this is important because I'm not in a place to live fully in my creativity as like work. I want to, I'll put that out there right now. I want to be, this would be my dream, is to be a salaried or income producing, I'll say income producing because I don't know about salaried. I've been a songwriter with my songwriting team and TV writer, because that's what we're doing. We're writing a TV series and that's what I do for work. You know, I mean, that would be to me, and that would be like all I do. Like that is my dream. But we can't always, I'm not going to, if I'm not doing that now, I'm not going to wait for that to happen. I'm going to do it while I'm working and taking
to the level that you can.
And Elizabeth Gilbert reflects on her dad, who was an engineer, but he always kept this creative side going. And this is the part I loved, is that he was very natural. For him, it was very much being in nature, it sounded like. So at one point he wanted to raise Christmas trees. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to grow and raise Christmas trees. So he bought some land, and that's what he did. He was an engineer, and he raised Christmas trees. And then he wanted to raise goats. This is what, like, I would raise goats. And he had all these goats, and he raised goats. And she said that was a big part of her watching him, because if he only did engineering, which is all the very intellectual stuff.
Quote unquote left brain stuff.
She's became this fantastic writer, but she wouldn't have had any of that modeling. So she kind of uses that as like, oh, he was showing me, like, modeling how you keep your creative life in your life. So I guess the idea with resistance is to not let the resistance just completely take you out of you having creativity in your life. That's like the goal for me. So if I can't be writing, I can't be in it doing what I want to be doing it, I find other ways. I'm going to go paint jeans, or I'm going to do photography, or I'm going to do this, because I can't not.
Right.
I just can't not.
And I think that's a great point too, because it's like, it's not that it even has to be anything that, you know, necessarily brings in income. I mean, ideally, I'm with you. Like, my ideal kind of day or life or whatever would be, it would definitely involve songwriting, especially for sync, for film and TV, script writing, you know, whether that's, I have some film ideas, and then also, you know, TV writing. I love TV writing. But a big part of that also, I can see now that I'm like, I have a passion for teaching, encouraging, inspiring, but I've never kind of known what for. And obviously the fact that we started this podcast, I now know what that is, you know, what that is. So I could totally see that being a big part of, so helping to develop other artists, you know, in the niches that I know, and then maybe teaching on it, you know, in some way, shape, or form. So that would be kind of my ideal.
Giving back, when you give back, like I watched this full circle thing, right? Like we're doing it now.
Right.
I feel like this is for us, but it's also for others. And when we do that, we're creating this thing. I don't even know what I want to call it yet.
Right. Yeah.
Creating this thing that,
the creative spiral. No, that's not, never mind. Scratch that.
But it's
I don't like that name.
It's a creative, like, momentum, but it comes loop. Yes. It's very cyclical. Like it's, you know, it's not like we're not
creative cycle. Yeah.
It is a creative cycle that includes other people outside of our, you know, sharing with other people before, this is the whole purpose, right? Sharing with other people before we actually have, we see all the finished product all the time.
Right.
That's what we normally see. We don't see the in-between. We're like saying, we're going to talk about the in-between. Oh, which is what we talked about. And I think we'll maybe share some of our demos as they're going, as opposed to the
that's right. We did talk about doing that. Yes.
You know, so in the future, we may have, like, I have one demo that's just me and the guitar, George playing guitar, me singing, not completely done yet. I think he's working on 2 of them, but we'll share the demo as it's going, like what it sounds like when it's just in the very beginning stages of our songwriting. you know, and it's,
Yeah.
and demos nowadays are really pretty polished, but
Right,
then when
right.
they're produced at
Yeah, maybe
a,
like the pre-demo
yeah, the
is what we'll
pre-demo.
share.
Yeah. So, I mean, so I think what we're doing is like just giving a connection for people to see like, oh,
Yep.
okay, this is, you know, because that comparing thing that,
Yep.
oh, well, I'm not Taylor Swift. That's what my little 7-year-old students, well, I want to be Taylor Swift. No, you don't really want to be Taylor Swift. You want to be you.
You want to
But
be you.
they don't, you know, it's like you can't, a
They don't know
7-year-old,
what
it's
that
hard to
is.
get that. But like,
Right.
but
Yeah.
that's like,
It's a little bit of a concept.
yeah, you know, and it's like, oh, well, you know, if I can't be Taylor Swift and that's what I'm being kind of modeled that, and I don't have this in school and I can't really, or I don't have parents that are supporting that because they want me to perform, then I just might as well give up.
Yep. Yep. Or they can't do it, can't handle it.
Or the
So
resistance takes over.
yeah, the resistance takes over. And I think we'll wrap up, you know,
Yeah.
these so this episode will definitely be a 2-parter. So I'm excited. So we're gonna wrap
Yes,
up.
we should do 2 parts on this.
So this part will be, so you, the part that you're listening to right now is the end of part 2. And I think to wrap up with the first part in this book about
Yeah.
resistance being the reminding yourself resistance is the enemy. Like that is the enemy that we're dealing with as artists. But the cool thing is he also talks about it. He's like, you can implement all this stuff into other stuff in
Yeah.
your life, weight loss, eating healthier, taking care of your body,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. But so the first part of it, I'll just wrap up with saying, so he talks about, these are the different sections that he talks about. Like, so part 1 is defining the enemy, which again is resistance. We'll say that over and over. And he then goes into each of these, but just to give you kind of an overall of part 1, resistance is, and then these are the different things he goes into. Resistance is invisible. It's internal, insidious. I had to look that word up because I've heard it, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Insidious, yeah.
Implacable, impersonal, infallible, universal, never sleeps, plays for keeps, fueled by fear, only opposes in one direction, most powerful at the finish line, and it recruits allies.
Ooh, most
powerful at the finish line. Isn't that
That's
wild?
why it's so hard to finish a song or
any project,
or to like. And if it's good, if it's really good, the fear gets
even harder.
Really harder. So
resistance gets really intense. So just know, because I mean, I dealt with resistance so much in my life that I did not know what it was.
Yeah,
I just thought I didn't have discipline. I wasn't motivated. I was lazy. No, it's resistance, you know? And so just the fact that you can name it and call out the enemy, you know, resistance and those things, like,
and it's important to discern between it being resistance if you have and self-protection that's healthy.
Yes.
Because I do think
call.
that, and that could be like, as we go into something to talk about in our collaboration episode, because I think you do need to have discernment. I do think there are people that you really don't want to send your music to, or there are some people that you really just don't. There like is a level of
safe
discernment,
space.
A safe space. So when you create a safe space, you can lessen your resistance. You can be open to hearing and learning and growing. Then you build that muscle, I guess you could say, that confidence. That's like, that was talked about this week. You build your confidence.
Yeah.
And then, you also learn some discernment. Yes. I feel like that's for me, that's an important part.
Yeah.
Of being able to recognize my resistance and say, because if somebody gives me instruction, go do this. And I haven't built what to do with a song. And I haven't built trust with them, which is probably why when Tom Ferry gave me instruction, he's not a songwriter or creative person. Right. So my response from him was maybe a little appropriate in the sense that, he doesn't know. He's on stage doing wasn't a safe. I thought it would be a safe space, but now if I went to his brother who teaches coaching for creatives, that might be more the person. Do you know what I'm saying? Not that I wouldn't go to him, but for songwriting,
right.
But now we have coaches. I have 4 coaches right now that I work with in songwriting that I trust.
Yeah.
And they've built that trust in a way that I would, if Judy says to me, that line doesn't work in this, okay, I'll fix it.
Yep. There's still that resistance that hits where it's like, oh, like, I wanted to, but I'm going to listen.
I'm going to move that. So my resistance is I'm going to move that line to my lyric bank and hang on to it because I love that line. I'm not getting rid of that. What do you think we should do next? Right. What's your suggestion? Right. That's a whole different thing than being like, oh, she hates my song. Oh my God. I'm never going to get it.
I'm going to quit. I'm no good. I can't do this. I stop. Yeah. Yep. Which is what, I mean, God, I did that for how many years, when again, using my mom as an example. And again, I love her to pieces, but she this is another thing that's not taught is how do you give feedback? How do you give criticism? Constructive criticism is important.
See, let's talk about that in our collaboration. Cause I think that,
well, and that may be its own episode, right there is like teaching, how to talk about, how to listen, how to give critiques if you're the one critiquing, and then how to take it, but also how to ask for it. I go to certain people. I'm like, hey, so for this song, all I really need to know is how is the mix of all the instrumentation? I don't need it. And that's not wrong to say, I don't want or need anything else with this. Cause maybe I've already worked with, you, for example, you and Pete. And now I just need another set of ears on the final, how's it all sounding together? The lyrics are not changing. Yeah. The melody is not changing,
that
doesn't mean that I haven't, doesn't mean I haven't taken input already. Yeah. It means that was a different set of people, so, and again, oh gosh, we can't reinforce enough, having a safe space with, who you share those things with. Cause going back, so like with my mom, for years, when I wanted so desperately to share it, just like a little kid bringing home a, piece of artwork, and wanting their parent to say, oh my gosh, this is so good, and put it on the fridge, right? You can't do that with a song. But I just remember like when I was little and I'd either sing something for her that was already out there, but I wanted to sing it for her, or, when I was writing like poems and stuff before I really kind of started turning it into songwriting, having her listen to, or when I got old enough and I did start doing more songwriting, she didn't know how to critique it, and again, she and I are both very authentic, sometimes to a fault. And so she meant well, but it wasn't the right thing for me. It was not I didn't need critique. I needed encouragement. And so,
that's so knowing your intention of what you
knowing
need.
Your intention of what you need.
These are all good things to teach. Maybe you're right. Maybe we should do a little.
Right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, because you're like I've learned a lot of this in these last year and a half on how to do this, and it's not like you said, like we were talking about. It's just not taught. Like you take art class or music class, you're learning the instrument, but you're not learning the critiquing and how to take critiques and how to, I mean, maybe some are, but I've had to learn it this last year.
I think it's very rare. I think it is taught in few
Depends
places
on the
here
teacher.
and there, but it's so, exactly. Like your art teacher before they quit it, before they stopped it, sounded like a great
he was great.
Because
Mr. Spooner. His name was
Mr. Spooner. Well, shout out to Mr. Spooner then. All right, guys. So I guess we'll wrap up because good Lord, we could keep talking on this subject. It's an amazing topic and we'll keep touching on it. We may, we'll break this episode.
We'll come back on this. Yeah.
We'll come back. But again, reach out, send us, we've asked a couple questions throughout and I promise we really do want to hear from you.
Yes.
We're not just saying that. So shoot us an email, jump on our socials.
Follow us, like us, share. That would be awesome.
We'd love that. Yeah, we would really, really appreciate that. I will throw back out there that, on our website, you can support us and you can do it for as little as $3 a month. And that would help us cover costs, like the website hosting and the podcast hosting, things like that. But just liking and sharing or liking, commenting and sharing is so amazing for us. Like that support means the world to us. So that right there is enough. But if you want to do more, there is the financial aspect of it that's super easy. So website again, thecreativedownloadpodcast.com. I am Chelsea Nettleton. This is Christy Bruno. And we've loved I love these episodes.
I do too. Well, until next time,
All
And
right.
Chelsea, I'll see you before next time when we write our series.
Yes,
Yeah.
we need to give you guys some updates on how our writing goes with our episode, like our TV show, without being able to share what it's about yet.
Yes.
We can give you an
Coming
idea of what
soon.
that looks
Yeah.
like. Yeah, but
Yeah.
coming soon. And yeah, that sounds great. I'll see you soon, Christy.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Creative Download, hosted and produced by Christy Bruno and Chelsea Nettleton, and edited by Chelsea Nettleton.